Welcome back, everybody. Last video, I got the engine sat in place of my budget race truck build here, as well as our steering components. Got everything cleaned up. Got the steering box cleaned up, idler and pitman arm are installed, as well as inner and outer tie rods. We also went ahead and installed the master and brake cylinder and made up a couple of new hard lines, eliminating all that junk that was sitting in place over here. And as you guys saw there, I did pull my manifolds off, got them wire wheeled and cleaned up, and they are both painted. Now, it is nothing fancy by all means. It's really just a high gloss. It is a high temp header paint. Definitely looks a lot better than the rusty or what is it? What would you guys call that? Like burnt orange, burnt rust, burnt dirt? Burnt dirt headers. Definitely looks a lot better than the burnt dirt headers that were on it. So I'm actually kind of hoping once it heats up or whatever, it gets kind of that like a bronzish color. I like that color, but probably not. It's probably just gonna flake off like all the other header paint in the world does. So, but as of right now, it does look a lot better, and people's eyes aren't going, why you did all that work and your header, your manifolds, they're dirty. So had to get that done. But we got all that stuff in the truck. Now the video we're going to be doing today is, I'm going to show you guys. I've already gone ahead and done the passenger side. I've removed the lower and upper control arms. It's got a new soft line installed because my original line down here at our caliper was cracked. Also went ahead and installed new brake caliper. You guys look inside here. We have got new spring, new new shock, new sway bar links, new sway bar mount. So everything up front is pretty much brand new. Everything except for upper and lower control arm bushings. Now those, when I pulled that stuff apart yesterday, they look good. They're not real bad. They're not tore up. They're still firm. They're not like peeling off or chunking out. So I do plan on upgrading the upper and lower control arms here in the near future. But for right now, these are going to have to do for what I got going on. So I got all the tools out, all my new parts. Oh, here we go. Let's see here. Yeah. So here's my original. You can see it's all cracked out, broken. They're pretty dry rotted. So since I'm tearing apart the whole front, rebuilding the whole front, might as well change those out. But I still have the driver's side to do. We're gonna be pulling everything apart, getting all that stuff off. As you guys seen over there too, I did paint the dust cover. All right, everything's gonna look real pretty, until the first point. I gotta pull this truck apart, and then it scratches, dents, and dings from there. But anyways, we'll go ahead and get you guys set up in the stand. I'm going to go ahead and start removing everything. I'm going to go over some of the tools too I used to do it, and kind of the methods I did or used to change some of this stuff out. Because I know, as a matter of fact, I pulled something apart, and it was this original ball joints. They were shot. So top one, they're riveted in because they have not been replaced before. Now, either the control arm was replaced at one point in time in its life, or this is all original equipment. So these can be a pain to get out, as well as pressing out the lower ball joint. Now you can do that. This is a Harbor Freight ball joint kit. It actually works out fairly well for most ball joints. So that's what I used on this truck. But anyways, get you guys set up in the stand. Start tearing this thing apart. All right, got the truck lowered down so I can get to it. Got all my tools kind of spread out in a way I might need them. So first thing I want to do is I want to get this brake caliper off. And well, basically the easiest way to do that, get a screwdriver. There is a hole here at the top. Let me get you in there. So you got this guy here at the top of the caliper. Now what I want to do is kind of get the screwdriver in here. Basically just kind of pull it over. That way it collapses that piston right there so you guys can see. Releases the bite on the rotor. You can grab it, everything spins freely like it's supposed to. and it kind of releases its bite on the rotor, making it easy to get off. Now that we got that, I'm going to get you up in here in the stand. That way I can use both hands. Get you there. Now on the back side of our caliper, get you in here. There we go. Back side of our caliper right here is the mounting hardware, and that is a 3/8 Allen. See if I can see if it'll focus in on there for you, but I don't even see it. But there it goes. There's a 3/8 Allen on the back. Go ahead and get those out. Now I have brand new calipers, so, and it also comes with same hardware. It comes with new hardware, new everything, which is really cool. New banjo bolt on the back with our little gaskets. So now they do say you don't ever want to reuse these little copper banjo bolt gaskets. I'll show you, and there's a reason why, especially if you change brake lines. See if you guys can see that there. If you can make out the little lines, it's because on the brake lines it has the little circles on it, and when you collapse this guy down, it's supposed to seal all the way around. And if new brake lines, the ribs might be in different spots. It might not be exactly the same, so reusing those is, they do not recommend it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I haven't done it, but they don't recommend it, and I did get new ones for this one, so go ahead and get this guy off. And I like kind of trying to go over some of the tools I use. There's some of you guys out there, are looking to do a brake job on your vehicle or on your truck. You got one of these, you got a truck just like this. Kind of want to know the tools to do it. Never done it before. Mechanic shops or labor rates are kind of getting pricey. I think shop rates now are up there around the $150 an hour mark. I think I could be wrong, but so this could be a way to help one or two of you out there save a buck. So, but now that guy is off. Now we're gonna go down here a little bit farther. I'm gonna go ahead and get this dust cover off so I can get the rotor off, and just use a little flathead screwdriver or like one of those flathead or flat style chisels or punches. But I like to use a flathead screwdriver. I got one that I keep around in my toolbox. It's kind of the beater screwdriver. It gets used for everything. I got another one too with a big old point on it. Now you don't want to collapse this cap. You just want to try to tap on it enough to get behind the little lip. And I know sometimes it's kind of a pain, but you just be a little persistent. Sometimes if you tap, there we go. See, that even worked out even better. But once you get it broke and you got a gap in between the cap and the rotor, you can tap the end there. You really don't have to go much farther after that. Just kind of work it around. Kind of helps keep from warping or making this thing all bent up. See? So once you get it in there, put it in between the rotor and that, twist it off. So we got that guy off there. Now this thing feels really, really good. I did pack the bearings when I changed out those spindles a couple years ago. We are going to be checking and repacking the bearings. Go ahead and get these cotter keys off. I do have new ones, so all these are being replaced as well. And I do kind of recommend that. Fatigue plays a big part on these. So, where's the other end? Oh, there it is. So you only be bent maybe 1-2 times max, really. So Harbor Freight sells kits. You can also go on eBay, look up cotter pin kits. They sell a little white box or a little clear box with hundreds of these things in it. So that's what I have. That's what I'll be using. All right, got that guy off. It will be this kind of job here can get really, really messy. because of all that grease. So, but we're gonna go ahead and get that off. Get this off, get it set to the side, and then later when we go to put it back on, we'll go ahead and wipe it down, check the bearings, make sure they all look good. The other side looked really, really good, so kind of expect this side to be the same way. I know what they say, right? Don't expect it, but I'm expecting it. So go ahead and take that off, get that out of there. Got a lot of grease on there. First glance, bearing looks really good. Now, here's another thing I like to do, and it helps. That way you don't have to use a screwdriver to get your dust seal and stuff off the back. That way you can get that bearing out and check. Go ahead and just thread this. Let me get my hand out of the way so you can see. Thread that nut back on. Just get a couple threads on it. And you don't have to be Conan the Barbarian. You don't have to get all Western and yank really hard, but basically just get it past that first race. And you feel it right there. It kind of catches. Just pull. Just give it a nice, good, light tug. And what that does is it pulls that bearing along with that dust seal off the back there. You don't have a screwdriver in there. You're not prying against it or anything. So quick and easy way to do that. Now that we got those guys out of the way, go ahead and set it off to the side. Get that guy off. Oops. Grease just gets everywhere. Definitely not one of my favorite things, but another reason I wanted to look at the grease is just make sure that it's, you know, it's got plenty of it in there. Not like gobs and gobs and gobs, but has enough. Take a quick look at this spindle here too. Yeah, everything looks good. Nothing looks like it got hot or anything. There's no bluing or anything like that. So that is a really, really good sign. Let's see, we'll go ahead and get this guy. This is over here. Get our rotor set out of the way. All right, got that. Now what I need to get off here, so go ahead and get this dust cover off. This is going to be wire wheeled and painted. Make it look nice. Make it look pretty. You know, I know no one's really going to see it. All right, wheels are going to cover it up for the most part, but oh man, come on. That's the neat thing. These are 13 millimeters, and I put a 1/2 inch on there because there it goes. First thing I grabbed. But if you're wondering what size these bolts are, they are 13s. 1/2 is just a little tight, especially when it's got all this dirt and dust on there. So once you get it cleaned off, it'll probably slide right off. Get this guy off, out of the way. There we go. Almost lost it. Almost lost it. And throw that off to the side so that can be wire wheeled and cleaned up here. Now, I've got to get the shock out of this truck. And it's the same thing on the bottom. They are 13 millimeter bolts on the bottom as well. You might, if the shock hasn't come out in a while, you might want to spray some WD-40 on it. I ended up breaking one of the bolts in the other one over there, and then welding a nut on it to get it out. So I'm going to spray the top of these guys here with WD-40. Get the 13s out of the bottom. Top of the shock. Now some of them are different, like my new shocks. The jam nuts on the top of the new shock are 16 millimeter. My old ones, this old one here, I believe is, yeah, it's a 14 millimeter. And yeah, you see, it's missing the bushing. So that shock really isn't doing much of anything. So I'll get that out as well. Get you guys up there, or I'll get you down a little bit farther. Go ahead and time lapse getting that shock out. And yeah, let's do it. I did it again. Got down there, took it out. You know what? And my knucklehead didn't hit record for whatever reason. I got something playing in my head, or anyways. Here's what we got here. Here is the 213s that came out of the bottom of our shock. Here is the top side of my shock. You can see the bushing on the bottom here. This is what was sitting on top with a 14 millimeter nut. And here's what's left of whatever bushing was in place. You can see that's pretty much gone. So it wasn't doing much of anything. You see the shaft here, although it's kind of rusted. See here, there we go here. There is a big gouge in there too as well. And it was wet a second ago, so if there's any fluid left in this shock at all, I think it was coming out. It wasn't doing anything. As a matter of fact, I don't know what I did with the one I took off the passenger side, but this is a different shock than what was on the passenger side. I didn't know it. And yes, I've had this truck for a few years. The only thing I did was, when I bought it, I put a big block in it, and I towed my trailer and motorcycle here. And I've been driving it ever since, and just kind of tinkering on little things here and there. So if I'd have looked earlier or sooner when I got the truck, I should have known. Maybe would have fixed it. Probably not. But I knew it was missing the bushing here, and it just rattled. Didn't do anything about it. But, so, we got that out of the way. Now, I got to get this spindle off here. And for, I've been going over this since, and kind of trying to compare it to the passenger side. I think this upper control arm was replaced at one point because the upper ball joint nut is a different size than what I took off of the passenger side. The lower, however, is the same size. So the lower control arm is in the factory spot. Upper is a little bit different, which kind of makes sense. There is a few things on this truck that are kind of different on the driver's side because this is the side that got hit or was in an accident at one point in time. So I don't know if they use junkyard parts or just whatever they bought off marketplace. That's what I would do. So no big deal. The lower one is I put a 1 1/16 on it to break the lower ball joint nut free. Upper ball joint is crescent. I think it's actually a 1 inch. I don't have it with me because I just found out that that upper one is a different size than the other one. So let's see if I have a 1 inch. And I do not. So add that to the list of tools I need. So we're going to use the adjustable hammer on the top one to get that upper one broke free, and get a floor jack underneath the lower control arm to kind of help support it, because once I break both nuts free, I'll just spin them off. Get a couple starting threads on it. Get the air hammer with a pickle fork on there to separate the ball joints from the spindle. And here's another thing I want to show you guys, because I am going to be getting the upper control arm off too. And that one, if you guys are interested, is leave a 21 millimeter for the upper control arm bolts. Matter of fact, let's get you in there. So our uppers are 21 millimeter. Now I want to try to keep this in the factory spot. And what I'm going to do is I got one of these little punches here, and I'm going to come right on the front. So I don't know if you can focus and if I have room, but you can see there is a line there. Well, there's nothing for me to really mark. So I'll take my little punch here. I'll put a mark here, and then I'll put a mark here. That way, when I put the two back together, I can line the dot here with the dot here. which should kind of keep it pretty close, enough for me to drive to the alignment shop after we get everything all buttoned back up. So I'm going to do that on the front and back bolts. I did do that on the other side. As a matter of fact, give you a better idea, I will go ahead and show you. Plus, you know what helps too is the fact that paint didn't get behind the upper bolts. So you could I could have done it that way too, but here's what we got. So you can see down there, there's a punch mark there on that, and there is a punch mark. There it is. See right down in there. Boom. There's a punch mark right there. So that dot lines up with that dot. I've got to tighten those up still. In case you're wondering, I don't really like tightening it. I'll get it lined up to where I want it. And you're supposed to have the truck under weight. So kind of like get it on the ground, get it on the suspension, get it under weight. That way it positions those bushings where they're supposed to be. Because if you were to go ahead and swap everything out and tighten it up with everything in full droop, when you put it on the ground, it's going to change your ride height a little bit because now that bushing is in a bind. And every time you go over a bump, it's excessively twisting that bushing, which will wear it out much, much faster. So you want to at least try to have the truck under full weight before you tighten all that stuff up. That way it lasts quite a bit longer. So yeah, we'll get you in the stand here real quick. I'll get you down so you can kind of see what's going on. Go ahead and get the floor jack underneath the lower control arm. Break those ball joints free and get all this stuff out of the truck. So let's start. All right, spindle is off. I did try using my pickle fork at first, but I realized I don't have one for the bigger ball joints. That one's really only mainly used for like tie rods. So had to resort to swinging the hammer. What you guys saw there, just hit it with the hammer, shock sets it free. So, but now that we got that out, I do want to get the lower control arm out as well. But before I do that, I want to go ahead and press this lower ball joint out because it's now, I mean, it's in the truck. It's holding it for me in place. So we're going to use, we're going to set up my little ball joint press there real fast. And this ball joint is actually, let's get you over here so you can see. Just bouncing around, huh? So here it is here. This one's actually, it's a little loose, but not, there's no like up and down in it. There's no jiggle. It's, I mean, you move it, it stays. So still in okay shape, but change out the other side. We're going to change this one. Let me grab my little ball joint set here. Now, like I said, this set here I picked up from Harbor Freight. And it works for most. It works for most ball joints. This is kind of like the basic kit that I bought. They do have like a master kit with a bunch more accessories and ways to rig it up so you can get your ball joint pressed out. I have had to use a socket, scrap metal stuff, little things here and there to kind of accommodate. I think on the full or my daughter's Dodge truck, it didn't have one of the fittings or didn't have a way to rig it up, press it out. I put it in, but anyways, it worked out for the passenger side of this truck. So go ahead and set this up, show you guys how to, well, show you how I use it. So hopefully this helps one of you guys out. Like I said, if I can figure out a way to motivate or get someone to go out there and just kind of attempt some of this stuff, even smaller things on your own, save you a little bit of cash. But what I like to do, because we are replacing it, and like I said, I didn't care about the whole boot, I'm going to go ahead and cut this boot off. Just kind of get it out of my way. It can be a kind of a pain to get tools over it and then try to get this rubber boot through the control arm. So like I said, it's being replaced. Just got a razor blade here. Go ahead and cut this boot off just to make it easier, just a little bit easier. I mean, it is for me. You don't have to. You may find that just leaving everything together is easier for you, but the more stuff I can get out of my way, the better. All right, so we got that guy off. Grab a rag. Now I've got one of these big guys here. That's big enough to go up underneath. It goes around the, goes around the outside of the ball joint and goes up against, like inside the lip of the lower control arm. And it creates an area because we're going to put this guy on the bottom. That allows the C-clamp to go up around this, and this gives an area for that ball joint to kind of fall into place. So, let's see what else I got here. I'm trying to remember exactly how I pressed that one out yesterday, but there we go. That guy there. There is another cup that goes over. There we go. That goes over it, just like that. That's another reason why I like to get the rubber boot off, because on the inside, see, you guys can see it, of that rubber boot is a metal lip. Like I said, you know, it just makes everything easier. So like right here is a metal lip for this guy to sit on. Gives me a nice good area to press against. This guy goes underneath here. There is another guy. Here we go. This goes up in there. So that allows me to press against this. Then up against here. Like I said, once you buy one of these, you can rent these too, I think, from the auto parts store. I'm not 100% sure, but if you do buy one of these, I say on everything, especially if you're going to use an impact on or whatever, put never sees on there, you will gold the threads if you do not. So keep that in mind. In here. Now somehow, there we go. Gotta get, yeah, all right. Get everything all lined up. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. Start tightening this guy up a little bit. There we go. So now you guys can see how that sets up. Try to square it up as good as possible, because if you don't, it wants to come out at kind of a weird angle. It'll deform this guy a little bit. And you don't want it to be deformed. You want the new ball joint to fit nice and tight in its place. So I do generally try to start doing this stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm going to put an impact on it, but at first, just to kind of see how it feels, how everything goes, I do like to try to start it by hand, because the last thing I want to do is destroy anything or get it to a point where I can't destroy it or unbreak it. So get it started by hand, make sure it's threading. You got plenty of room inside the inside your clamp. You got plenty of threads in there. Everything's going to start collapsing itself together. Now you're going to notice too, because it's kind of a cheaper C-clamp, so it will kind of expand a little bit. What I do plan on doing is getting a piece of steel for both sides, cleaning this up and welding it in there to kind of keep it more rigid. But for right now, it is working out. So like I said, start everything by hand. Actually, I'll just continue by hand because it is coming out fairly easy. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but it is coming out very nice, actually. No fighting. There we go. You guys just saw it loosen up. There, boom. Ball joint falls through. Go ahead and get that there. Get some of the stuff off. There's that cup I said. It gives you a place for that ball joint to fall in. Now that tool is not that expensive. Truthfully, I think it's, I want to say Harbor Freight, I think it's somewhere around 80 bucks. I think, don't quote me, not 100%. Get on the interweb or internet and Google it. Or eBay, probably find a cheaper toolkit on eBay. So, but it makes life much easier. I have been able to do these two with just using a hammer to get them out, and using a hammer to put them on, but a floor jack up underneath, pressure around. It's kind of a pain. It's much easier to have this tool. So you guys saw how easy it was to get it out. Once you're done, everything just comes apart, and you kind of reverse the whole thing, putting it back together. So now that I got that ball joint out, I'm gonna go ahead and get the inner lower control arm bolts off, and I believe those are 15/16. Yep, inside and out. I'll get those off. I want to get this thing outside, get it wire wheeled, get it all cleaned up so we can start painting it. So I'm gonna get this off, get it outside, and then we're gonna go over and get what I did to change out the upper ball joint on the upper control arm. So let me get this out. I'll be right back. All right, lower control arm is off. Got it sitting right here. It's waiting for me to get a wire wheel on it and clean it up so we can paint it. Same with the spindle that's sitting on what's left of my washer over there. Here is our upper. Now we do need to change out the upper ball joint, and I need to cut these rivets off. Now on my passenger side, I put an X in it to kind of weaken it up a little bit, then use an air hammer with a chisel, chiseled each one of those off. But some of you guys out there probably don't have an air chisel or an air compressor big enough to power an air chisel. So what I'm going to do is we're still going to use a cutoff wheel. This guy here, it's a Black & Decker. I actually picked it up at Walmart. I think it was on sale for like 12 bucks. But it's been working out really well. We'll go ahead and use this. We're going to cut off the top of the rivet, and we're going to dig down into the upper ball joint. I had to do that using an air hammer as well, because those rivets, when they get pressed in, they're heated up and then pressed, and it swells into the center of the upper ball joint. So they're really solid. And if you just cut the top off and try to hammer or punch, use a punch to knock the pin out, you end up doing nothing but making a whole lot of noise. So you have to dig down in it anyways. But we get you guys up in the stand. We're going to do a time lapse real quick. I'm going to use the cutoff wheel here, cut the top of those off, dig down into the upper ball joint far enough to loosen everything up. Then we're going to use a hammer and just this little punch here to knock the rivets out. So I'll get you guys set up in the stand. Go ahead and get cutting this out. All right, upper ball joint is out, and all, as you guys saw there, just used the cutoff wheel and a little punch. Now, what I did was just cut little slots in it, made it easier to cut the head off, and then use that cutoff wheel to kind of cut down inside. As you can see how far down I went, because it does swell into these holes. So the deeper you can cut this out, the easier it is to knock them out. So you can see how far down. Now the ones towards the back here, you see I kind of nicked it. So just nick the paint. That'll get fixed real easy with just paint. So, but you can see there, that's how far I cut it down. So you don't need an air hammer to do this, or a punch. If you can get one of those cheap little punches there, I think that's from Lowe's. Cutoff wheel, like I said, I got from Walmart. Save you a few bucks. Here is our new upper. Now the new uppers come with 2 different size hardware. So show you guys here on the other one how I installed it. So there's our new upper ball joint on this side. And I always like to do these with the nuts up, because like I said before, if I do nuts down, it might look, I know it does look prettier with the bolts facing down. Nuts underneath, you don't get threads showing or anything like that. Looks a little nicer, but if a nut was to back off, and I mean, they really shouldn't because they are crowned, but say the bolt breaks and the nut falls off, I won't see it. So at least this way, if anything was to happen with the nut or something like that, I can visually see it, do a quick walk around, everything looks tight, good to go. But now that that's out, I'm going to go ahead and get this over here next to the lower control arm, start wire wheeling the underneath, get it undercoated, get that lower control arm all cleaned up and painted, and undercoated as well as the spindle. So I'm going to knock all that out real fast. So we'll be back in a sec to put everything back in the truck. All right, we are back inside, got the upper and lower control arms wire brushed and painted. Undersides are undercoated, top sides are painted. Went ahead and cleaned up the frame as well underneath here. Got that painted up too. That way everything's kind of matches, kind of uniform. Upper ball joint is installed. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Once you cut the rivets and knock the old one out, do whatever it is you need to do with your upper control arm, bolt the new one back in. And like I said, I like to see the nuts up top. That way it's a good, quick visual, especially if I'm going to be doing what I want to do with this thing. Just nice and quick. So, but now we got to get the lower ball joint back in place. And that is basically reverse of how we took it out. So you can see here, this thing gets held in by these splines. Goes in from the bottom. There are two different kinds. So you go to the auto parts store and pick up parts. Make sure you get a good look at your ball joints, because there are two different kinds. Matter of fact, like I said, I was missing one in my other kit. Should have took a good close look at it. I ordered another set of ball joints, but they were the smaller ball joints, so I had to pick this one up from my local auto parts store. But anyways, I got it. We got to get this thing together so I can get this thing back on the road. Start moving on to other things with this truck. So we're going to go ahead and get you back in this stand here. Get you swung over so you can take a look at what we got going on. Kind of give you an idea. These little ball joint presses, or those ball joint tools here, are really cool. They do come in super, super handy. So, like I said, this guy is going to come in from the bottom. So it has a little rubber boot on it. So you are going to have to like persuade it a little bit, get it past just the edge of that rubber boot. Once we got that in a spot where it wants to hold itself in place, I'm going to be, here's our big cup. That's going to go up here around. This guy here has got the big hole. That way it allows for centering up our tool here, our press. And it allows the top of the ball joint to come through, as well as this. So go ahead and get this guy up here. Get him centered up. Get this guy up here on the bottom. Oops. Let's get run it up by a hand. Now pressing these in are sometimes going to be a little more difficult because of the splines on different ball joints. So there's no problem. Just take your time. There. Oops. Make sure you get everything centered up too where you need it. Makes life much easier if it's everything centered. Okay, so that's in place. That's in place. Again, we are going to start off with, since it works so well with our just using the ratchet, we're going to start off that way again. There we go. Just take your time. At a certain point too, I mean, once you start running it on by hand, you're going to know if it's in a bind or not. Which is another reason why I like to start putting them on and taking them off with the ratchet. That way you can kind of feel how it's going. Get a flashlight up in there too, so you can kind of see if that ball joint is going in evenly around, and this one looks to be like it is. So go ahead and keep on going. Boom, boom, boom. You can see there, that's all good. Go ahead and double check the threads on the top there. Perfect. You can see here all the way around. Press all the way up, just the top of the splines poking through the top there. Yeah. It's flush all the way around. So that's good. Go ahead and get you up in there so you can see. There you go. Top of our splines here, poking all the way through. And when you get up there, where's the flash up? So you can see right where the edge of that ball joint sits. Hopefully. There you go. Right there. Right at that step. So it is butted all the way up against it. So our lower ball joint is in place. Now what I need to do, go ahead and get that zerk fitting under there. Get that installed in this lower ball joint. Go ahead and get our spindle set up in place. Just set that in. Get our outer tie rod hooked up to the spindle. Move on to the dust cover, caliper, or dust cover. Then we'll go ahead and clean, inspect, check our bearings, our wheel bearings. Then get that guy installed. So spindle, go ahead and get you back up in the stand. And do ourselves a little time lapse of installing our spindle. Actually, I take that back. Get so excited with this stuff. Everything is the cleaning probably takes the most, and I got so many things going on, like what I need to do. I'm not gonna go over all that right now. But before I put the spindle on, I want to make life easy on myself. I'm gonna install our spring and our shock. So let me grab that real quick. Push these guys out of the way, because this truck will not hold itself up without our spring. But all right. So if you guys were watching, when I kicked out our lower one, I had to reach up in there. Here's a little bushing, or it's a little like isolator. That way it's not metal. The spring isn't metal on metal up in there. Like, I guess it's okay if it starts wearing on the lower, because the lower control doesn't have one, but it does have one at the top. So make sure to put this back in. You can see how it sits on the spring. So no real messing that one up. Now what you do want to do, and that one's going to be hard for me to get up in here to show you guys. I'll go ahead and loosen this bolt back up so I can lower this control arm down. I tightened it up to hold it in place so I could do the lower ball joint. So now that we got this done, there, loosen that up, make life a little bit easy on myself. Move that over that way. Now this one will be kind of difficult to get up in there, but it is flat up in there, but you'll see like a little wear point where the original, see like this right here, because this is where the spring pushed up inside the isolator here. So you'll see on the frame up in there where the spring sat. But the most important, and this is one I can show you guys, if you look at your lower control arm here, there's a pocket right there. You guys make that out where the spring sits. So regardless of what happens up inside the frame, you do want to make sure that your spring is orientated and clocked correctly in the lower control arm. If you turn it, it'll kind of mess with your height a little bit, not by much, 1/4 inch, but it's meant to hold the spring in place. So make sure you get that installed inside that little pocket. Grab our new shock. And this is just basically kind of like a It's got like a factory height replacement or whatever. I bought it, it said 0 to 2 inch drop. So this is the only drop on this so far is in the spindle. That's a 2 inch drop spindle. The suspension has been in the factory position this whole time. When I put the original springs I took out are the ones that were in it for the V6. So when I put the big block in it, it sank quite a bit, but it didn't ride on the bump stops or anything. I still had a little bit of travel in the suspension left. So when I cut the back of this truck up and made it a short bed, flipped everything, the 2 inch drop spindles leveled the truck out. But now that we took the big block out, this LS is considerably lighter than the big block, so I figured I'd compensate by putting 1 inch drop springs in it. So fingers crossed that I did that correctly. Hopefully I did. If not, then I can do something with the shackles in the back. I can lift the truck a little bit, maybe put a blocks on there. Something. Airbags, not airbags, air shocks. We'll cheat it for a little bit because I do plan on changing the control arms out in the front of this. But for right now, this stuff's going to work. So, anyways, go ahead and get this guy. Let me get my floor jack ready. It's another reason why I wanted the engine in this truck before doing all this, especially being up on the lift. Need the weight. I was to try to do this while the truck was on the lift without an engine in it. We would have problems. All right, so floor jack is sitting right there. Go ahead and get you guys down here. Set this spring up in place. There is little fingers that has to sit in between, so make sure you get that in there. Yeah, that's good. We'll go ahead and lift this guy up. That's the neat thing too about drop springs. They are so much easier to put back into place than factory replacements. Yeah. Imagine trying to do that, especially you have to kick it out. This guy right there. Okay. Go ahead and level that out just a little bit, just enough to get a shock in there. That should be plenty. That should be plenty. Enough room. All right, get you up there. You got the spring set in place. I am going to double check real quick, make sure that it is sitting where it needs to be in that pocket. Looks to be that way. Oh yeah, okay. We are good. Grab our shock. Get that put up in there. Can't see. Ooh, there's that. And up in place. So this might be neat. Driving a truck around that doesn't go clang, clang, clang on the driver's side because the shock's falling out. Can't believe I did that. Actually, yeah, I can. Do it all the time. One thing about working on your own stuff is like, yeah, sometimes you're in the mood, sometimes you're not. Probably a lot like some of you guys out there. It's fun when you're building something to do something. Maintenance, not so much. There we go. Hardware started. Guessing. All right. Okay. Think that'll work. Oh, yeah. There's that. Now, oh yeah, like I said, the ones I took out of this truck were 14s. The new ones are 16s. Oh. All right. Shock and spring are in. So now I can go ahead and get set up in here to put the spindle in place now. You can get down in here. There you go. New springs installed. New shock is installed. Everything's bolted up. 13s on the bottom are tight. I did replace those. 16s on top are tight as well. Now, if you're ever wondering how to adjust or how tight you want to put your shock, I was always told, and I'll show you, it goes for the same as swivel. You tighten the top just to the point where it starts to bulge the bushing, and that is as tight as you want that to. Any tighter than that, you over squish the bushing, and it will cause premature failure. Like it'll want to try to split or something after a while. So that's how I was taught. Run it down till it just starts to bulge the rubber, but not past the size of the washer or whatever's retaining it. So lowers on, uppers on. Go ahead and now do a time lapse. We'll get the spindle bolted up into place. Get the dust cover on, and then we'll inspect our bearings. So let's put our spindle on. All right, knuckle, shock, spring, everything's buttoned up in place. Little dust shields bolted up, cotter keys are in, everything's tight. Went ahead and greased each one of the zerk fittings too, or each one of the ball joints and outer tie rod. So all that has grease. Sway bar link is in there handy. Like I said, I'll get everything tightened up once I get the truck under its own weight. And I did mark that on our list that's on the windshield says check and tighten suspension bolts. So that's the whole front. Now, I have already pretty much wiped off a majority of all the grease off our bearings and out of our race in our rotor. And I want to show you guys what that looks like. So hopefully the camera picks it up, but if you look inside there, you see how it's shiny at the top, shiny at the bottom. Hopefully it'll focus a little bit, but there's no like drastic variation in that pattern. So the bearing is riding nice and square. There is no pits in here. Everything looks nice and smooth, clean, along with our bearing here. So there's no pitting on any of the rollers. I've gone over and checked everything out. There is no like drastic variation in color or anything on the rollers as well. So everything's been riding pretty good. I never had a problem. Bearings didn't make any noises. But I figured since we're going this far into everything, double check, clean them up, make sure everything's looking good, and just repack them, re-grease them. So get you guys in the stand here real quick. I'm going to show you what I use. Let's see here. Now, you can pack them by hand. That's fine. I used to do that for a long time. Put this big old glob of grease in there. Basically, what you do is you just kind of grab this edge and kind of slap in there. It'll work. The grease would work its way up the rollers and start pushing out right here. And it's a really good way of doing it. You can go through, you can check, you can rotate, slap it again, pack this thing really, really good with grease. But what I have found at the auto parts store, now I bought this many years ago, and it's just a cone. Basically, your bearing goes right in the middle of that. You hook the grease gun up to this thing here. I'm going to show you real quick. So we'll loosen the bottom up, get this top guy off. Really neat little tool. I like it. So take that, drop your bearing. What it does is, because it's a cone, this outside edge seals against the plastic here. Grease comes out of the little holes that's in this shaft, and it goes through because the inside is raised. So grease comes out, pressurizes up in here, and then gets forced out each one of the rollers. Really cool. Like I said, I bought it. I don't remember what auto parts store I bought it at, but I bought it quite a few years ago, actually. So tighten that guy up, run this up. Try to center that bearing up the best you can. Right? It helps. But it will get grease in there regardless of which way it goes. Line that up. There. So you can see there's nothing. Let me see if I can wipe some of that out of there. Give you a better visual. Okay. So you can see just smooth in there. So take my grease gun. Now, let's see if we can get a visual so you guys can see. Whoops. How if I actually snap that in? There we go. Now, pump it full of grease. And you'll watch it as it starts to. Come on. Huh. It's a big bearing, so there it goes. There you go. Now you can take your fingers in there too and loosen it up and roll it around. But as of right now, that bearing is packed all the way around, nice and even. So Said I bought this tool at an auto parts store many years ago, and that's what I've been using ever since. Really neat little tool. I keep it in a plastic bag. It does get a little messy, but that's okay. You can see it fills up that whole center there and pressurizes grease to come up and around. Plenty of grease inside our bearing. Go ahead and take a little bit of that, wipe it on our race. Sure that's got plenty of grease. Like, you don't want to be stingy with the grease on your wheel bearings, but you don't want to be over greased either to where it's like running out everywhere. So get that bearing, whoops. That bearing installed. Go ahead and put our dust cover back on. Our dust seal, grease seal. It's called many different things. So, and then before I put them on, I like to get the grease gun in there and just kind of go across the bearing just to make sure it's got plenty of grease up against the bearing. And of course, as things start to heat up, you know, grease gets a little, it starts to run to the bottom, or like when the vehicle sits or whatever. It just makes sure, I just like to make sure there's plenty of grease in there. So I've done it this way for a long time. It's how I was shown. I haven't had any issues with it. So, all right. So rear inside bearing is greased. Go ahead and get this outside bearing greased up real fast. Get that installed. Get our jam nut, or get our nut on there. And then be right back. Or time lapse. See that. All right, outside bearings greased, installed. Now you got to set the bearing. You can't just put the bearing on and tighten it up and snug it and then put your key in and walk away. That does cause more issues than anything. What you want to do, or what I do, is grab your wrench. I'll get you down here again. So run your nut on till it, eye candy, till it stops by your hand. Go ahead and rotate it. Grab your nut, tighten it up again. Rotate it. It kind of helps work that grease in there. There, so it's kind of loosened up now. So there you go. It starts to get snug. Go ahead and rotate. Grab it. Tighten it up. See, it's real snug. Now, loosen it up. Now I loosen it up so it's handy. Run it back on with my fingers till it stops. Go ahead and rotate it over again. And basically go till you find there. Done. Go till you find where you can put the keeper in, and then bend it up. Now normally I bend them out and in, but that doesn't work with wheel bearings, so especially if I'm using a dust cap, just go ahead and run that out. And then of course I put a little bit of grease inside the dust cap, tap it on. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this guy set back up into place there. And then I'll get the rotor wiped off with some brake cleaner, get that all shined up. And we'll go ahead and get the caliper installed and our new brake line. So here we go. All right. Dust cover's on. Bearings are all torqued. New brake caliper is installed. Went ahead and installed our new brake line as well. Got everything all buttoned up. Everything's all tied in together. I've already gone ahead and bled the back brakes with the help of, so you can see her in there. Say hi, Delilah. Hi. I got her in the truck pumping away at that brake pedal. I do, however, start off with, I have a vacuum pump. I start off with that first. Kind of saves on the leg. Go ahead and start. I hook this up, break it open, turn the pump on, and it pulls fluid out of the reservoir through the lines and everything. I've already got the backs are done. Passenger side front brake is done. We're going to go ahead and move up to our driver's side here. I've already topped off the reservoir. I'm just going to find my wrench. Whatever. Found it. So put this guy on right here. Now, I like this tool for the fact that it saves on the leg. You don't have to sit there and pump it forever and ever. All right, just go ahead and crack the line. Turn it on. And you're going to watch it. It'll start pulling fluid. If I can get it open all the way. Let me see. Make sure I got that open. There it goes. So, now you can see it's pulling fluid through the line. However, I'm still a really, really big fan of the manual way of having somebody in there and pumping it. It just seems to always work better for me. I don't know if you can see there, reservoir is about, there you go, it is coming down. I will run that till about halfway through, just like I did the passenger side. Kind of helps do a system flush as well. So the more fresh, brand new fluid I can get into it, the better I feel. You got Seth back there contemplating life. We're about there. So, and this always works out. I've actually owned this tool for over 20 years. Believe it or not. The hose is 20 years old. And it's hard. The only thing that works that's still flexible on it's the little rubber head on there. But, all right, go ahead and snug this guy back up. Make sure it gets all the fluid out of the line. So I know they sell versions like this too. If you get on Amazon or eBay or even Harbor Freight, they have their own version of that. They even got the little handheld one. So, like I said, I just use it to pull fluid through the system. Once I got fluid there, I get somebody up in the vehicle and have them pump till their legs are tired. So got this guy off. Go ahead and top it off. Really cool to have brakes in this truck again. One step closer to getting it back on the ground. Right, I'll go ahead and put the top back on. All right. You ready, Delilah? Yeah. Okay, let me put this over here. All right. Okay, go ahead and pump it. Hold it. Pump it. Hold it. Pump it. We got movement over here, but still got a little bit of air up there. All right, hold it. Pump it. Hold it. Is your foot going down each time? Yeah. All right, pump it. Hold it. Oh, it's got fluid in it already. It's clear. I can't see it. All right, so we got plenty of fresh fluid in the system. I'm hearing it go into a bucket, but I don't see it running. So obviously there isn't a whole lot of air in there, so that's cool. Pump on it for me. Yep. Okay, so just to show you guys here, relax and see if we can get a little bit of air here. I'm going to turn the pump on so we can suck all the fluid out of it. Yep, there it goes. So, Yeeto. All right, pump on, Delilah. You can see, I don't know if you'll make, let's see if it'll. So we ran back down another half. And I like to do that. I get fluid going to all the corners. You can relax now for a second. Then I will run it to about half, run the pump on half, then foot brake it or bleed the brakes using our foot for half. That way it ensures I get fresh fluid from the front to the back to each corner. Kind of like I said, gives it a nice good flush. Making sure my mic is on. Little thing. So we got fluid to all the corners. I'm down halfway on our front brake reservoir there, so I can go ahead and top it off. Now what I'll do is I'll grab my wrench. Oh yeah, we got to turn it. So you can see here, let me go ahead and get you flipped around. Real test would be good on the street, but turning it. All right, hit the brakes. Oh yeah. So definitely got brake pedal. It does stop. You can let up. Oh, there she goes turning. So definitely looking forward to get this thing on all four tires again, on all four wheels, on the ground, out for a test drive. So that way I can really feel how the brakes are going. I will get this thing back up in the air. I do want to double check all my connections. Make sure I don't have any leaks. As a matter of fact, let me show you here. These are the fittings that are the flares that we made using new line and the technique I showed you by letting it have a little bit of squish. So that is good and dry. Get down in here on this one. That's dry, no fluid down there. Get back over here. That is nice and dry. So there is our factory one, so that looks okay. But I will be going over all the brake lines, double checking, make sure we have no leaks on the brakes. So, but there we are. Yesterday I got the passenger side done. Today we got the driver's side all done. So it's got a new shocks, new springs, 1-inch drop springs, new calipers. Wheel bearings have all been repacked. It's got brand new upper and lower ball joints. Throughout the whole front end, it's got new inner and outer tie rods, new idler arm, new pitman arm, new sway bar links, new sway bar mounts. So hopefully this truck handles like a dream. Fingers crossed. So now you guys can see here, I have just got a mess of all my tools scattered all over the place. I got home yesterday, day before, or the night. Well, anyways, just got home. So wanted to jump on this. All the parts came while I was at work. I wanted to make sure I had everything so we can get the front end back together. So now I'm one step closer to getting it on the ground. Next, I should have all the parts. I need to get that thing wheeled up to the front of the shop so I can get all the grease, oil, and grime off that thing, get it pretty much scraped. I've got a bunch of parts I may or may not need there, as well as some fresh clutches, because we are yanking that thing apart. we're going to freshen it up. That way I can get it back in the truck, get that engine sitting where it's supposed to. That way I can throw our turbo kit on. Just, there's a lot of work, and time is running out. So, fingers crossed. Anyways, gotta get myself all cleaned up, get all set up and ready for my next projects. And hope you guys like the video. Get out there, work on your stuff. Or at least I hope I motivated somebody to get out there and work on your stuff. Get it going. At least make a list or something. If you're new and you've made it this far, hit that subscribe button for me. Turn on notifications. Leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if this helps. So, but anyways, you guys, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. I'm going to get my stuff cleaned up, get ready for the next project. And I'll catch you guys later.